She told me she was working late, but when I found out the truth, it shattered my world. Her secret affair was exposed, and I never saw it coming. Stay tuned for the full story, and don't forget to subscribe for more shocking moments. It all started so perfectly, so naturally. I met Emily 2 years ago, and from the moment we crossed paths, I knew she was different. She had this magnetic energy about her, a perfect blend of confidence, kindness, and intelligence. We hit it off right away, sharing stories of our childhoods, our dreams, and the paths we hope to take. It was like we had known each other forever, even though we'd only just met. Our relationship blossomed quickly. We spent every free moment together, laughing, talking, and dreaming of a future that seemed so promising. Emily was everything I had ever wanted. She was loving, attentive, and always there when I needed her. We made plans for the future, talked about moving in together, getting married, and starting a family one day. I thought I was the luckiest man in the world. Our connection felt genuine, like we were two halves of the same whole. We spent weekends together, traveled to new cities, and built memories that were etched into my heart. She made me feel special, like I was the most important person in her life. We would share intimate moments, comforting each other through the toughest parts of our lives, always reassuring each other that we were in this together. The trust we shared was undeniable, and I thought that nothing could ever break us apart. But over time, something started to feel off. It was subtle at first. Small things I tried to brush off. She began to cancel plans last minute, saying she had work commitments or she'd be too tired for dinner. At first, I thought nothing of it. I knew she had a demanding job, and I admired her dedication. But after a while, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The distance between us was growing, and I felt like I was losing the connection we once had. I decided to give her space, thinking it was just a phase. Maybe she was stressed or overwhelmed. But then the changes started to pile up. Her responses to my texts became shorter, and she seemed distracted when we were together. I found myself questioning everything. Why was she pulling away? Was I doing something wrong? Or was there something she wasn't telling me? I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. My instincts were screaming at me to dig deeper, to find out the truth. But I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think that the woman I loved could be hiding something from me. So I pushed the thoughts to the back of my mind, hoping they would go away. But they didn't. It was one evening, a week after our last date night, that I decided to follow my instincts. She had told me she would be working late, but something felt off. I knew she had been working long hours lately, but the odd behavior had become too much to ignore. I had to find out what was really going on. I waited until she left for work, telling myself it was just another long night. But something inside me told me I needed to see for myself. I grabbed my jacket and followed her. I didn't know what I was expecting to find. Maybe I was just being paranoid, but I had to know. I followed her car through the streets, my heart pounding in my chest. As she pulled into a hotel parking lot, I felt my stomach twist. She parked and walked inside without hesitation. I sat there in my car, the shock hitting me like a tidal wave. My mind raced with questions. Why was she at a hotel? And why was she there alone? I sat there for a moment, unable to move, unable to think. I had to confront her. I couldn't just sit here pretending everything was fine when I knew something was wrong. But what if I was wrong? What if there was a simple explanation? The doubt that had been building inside me was now consuming me. I had to know the truth, even if it meant confronting her in the hardest way possible. My hands trembled as I reached for the door handle, but before I could make a move, I saw her come out of the hotel. She wasn't alone. I felt my heart stop. A man, someone I didn't recognize, was walking beside her, laughing. They looked so comfortable together, like they had known each other for years. I felt sick to my stomach. I had to look away, but I couldn't. I needed to see it for myself. The man kissed her on the cheek before they parted ways, and my mind went into a frenzy. When she drove off, I stayed in my car for a few minutes, trying to make sense of everything I had just seen. My mind couldn't wrap itself around it. How could Emily, someone I trusted, someone I loved, be hiding something like this from me? How long had it been going on? I felt like I was suffocating. My world was unraveling, and I had no idea how to stop it. I couldn't stay in the parking lot forever, so I drove home. But when I got there, the realization hit me. Everything I had believed in was built on a lie. Emily, the woman I thought I knew, had been hiding something from me, and I had to face it, whether I was ready or not. The next few days were a blur. I didn't know how to process what I had seen or what it meant for the future. Every time I tried to sleep, all I could see was Emily walking out of that hotel, laughing with a man who wasn't me. I wanted to confront her right away, to scream at her, to demand answers. But something inside me told me I needed to be calm. I needed to know the truth, and that meant I couldn't approach her blindly in a rush of anger. But every time I saw her, I couldn't help but feel this heavy knot in my stomach. She seemed so normal, so unchanged. It was as if nothing had happened. She continued to make small talk, asking me how my day went, planning our next outing. But I couldn't hear any of it. I couldn't focus on the things she said. All I could think about was what I had seen. I was living in a constant state of denial, not wanting to face the fact that the woman I loved was betraying me. That evening, after dinner, I told her I needed to talk. My heart was racing as I waited for her response. She smiled, oblivious to the storm that was brewing inside me. "Of course, what's up?" she said, her voice light and casual. We sat down on the couch, and for a moment, everything felt strangely normal. But the heaviness in my chest was unbearable. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I had to confront her, even if it tore me apart. "Emily, I saw you," I began, my voice steady but full of pain. "I saw you at the hotel with that man." Her face froze, her eyes widening in surprise. For a moment, she didn't speak, and I could see her scrambling for the right words. I waited, my heart pounding in my ears. "You were with him. Don't try to deny it." "I saw everything," I continued, my voice quieter now. "Why? Why did you lie to me?" She shifted uncomfortably on the couch, her hands fidgeting in her lap. I I wasn't expecting you to see that," she said, her voice shaky. "It's not what you think." I felt the anger bubbling inside me, threatening to overtake my control, but I forced myself to stay calm. I needed the truth, not an excuse. "Then explain it to me, Emily," I said, my voice strained. "Explain why I saw you with another man. How long has this been going on, and why didn't you tell me?" She looked away, her eyes welling up with tears. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her, until I remembered everything I had seen. I couldn't let her manipulate me into feeling sympathy just yet. "I don't know where to start," she whispered, her voice breaking. "It's been going on for a few months. We met through work, and it started as just an innocent friendship, but it turned into more. I never meant for it to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." I was stunned. I had always thought we shared everything, that there was nothing she would hide from me. But now I realized how wrong I had been. "How could you do this to me, Emily?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and disbelief. "How could you lie to me for so long? Make me think everything was fine when you were with him?" She took a deep breath, wiping away a tear. "I never wanted to hurt you," she repeated. "I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to lose you. But I also didn't want to keep living this lie." A part of me wanted to reach out, to comfort her. But the other part of me, the part that had been hurt so deeply, couldn't bring myself to do it. She had made a choice, and now I had to make mine. I don't know if I can forgive you, Emily, I said quietly, my heart breaking with every word. I don't know if I can trust you again. I've given you everything, and you've lied to me. You've destroyed everything we had. She shook her head, her face full of regret. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I should have told you sooner. I was selfish, and I didn't think about how it would affect you. I just didn't know what to do. I stood up, unable to sit still any longer. The walls were closing in on me, and I had to get away. I needed to think, to clear my mind. I needed to be alone to process the weight of the conversation, to decide what my next steps would be. I can't do this right now, I said, my voice quiet but firm. I need some time to think. I turned to walk away, but she called after me. Please don't leave like this. Let's talk more. I don't want to lose you. But I couldn't listen anymore. I didn't want to hear her apologies. I didn't want to hear her excuses. I needed space. I needed clarity. As I walked out of the room, my heart was heavy with the realization that my entire world had been turned upside down. The woman I trusted had betrayed me, and now I had to figure out how to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing. I couldn't keep living in this lie. The truth had come crashing down, and now I had to face it. The following days were torturous. I had expected the confrontation to bring some sort of closure, but instead, I was left drowning in confusion and heartbreak. Emily's words echoed in my mind, but they did little to ease the storm inside me. I kept asking myself, how could I not see it? How could I have been so blind to the signs? Every corner of our life together felt tainted now, like something beautiful had been poisoned, and I couldn't get rid of the taste of betrayal. After that night, I distanced myself from her. I needed time to think, to process, to figure out what I wanted. I was emotionally exhausted, and every moment I spent with her felt like I was walking on shattered glass. Every glance, every word, reminded me of the painful truth. She had lied to me. She had betrayed my trust, and I wasn't sure I could ever trust her again. During the days that followed, I couldn't escape the gnawing feeling in my stomach. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every text message, every call felt like an invasion of my space, a reminder that I was no longer living in the reality I thought I was. My mind kept racing with questions. Why didn't she just end things if she was unhappy? Why did she feel the need to lie to me? The hurt was overwhelming. I tried to push these thoughts aside, but they kept creeping back in, uninvited and relentless. Eventually, Emily reached out again. This time, her message was different. It wasn't an apology or an explanation. It was simply, I miss you. Can we talk? It took everything in me to respond. I didn't know if I was ready to have another conversation, to hear the same words, the same excuses. But deep down, I knew I needed closure. I needed to understand why she had done this, even if it didn't change anything. I couldn't keep holding on to anger and confusion. I had to know the truth, even if it meant facing more hurt. We agreed to meet at a small coffee shop, a neutral place where we could talk without distractions. I was anxious the entire time leading up to the meeting. My heart pounded in my chest, and I couldn't stop the flood of emotions that hit me. Would she apologize again? Would she make more excuses? But most of all, I wondered if anything could ever make me feel better about what had happened. When I arrived at the coffee shop, she was already sitting at a table by the window, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. As soon as she saw me, she stood up, her eyes full of regret. She looked different, smaller, almost like she was ashamed to face me. But I wasn't sure how to feel about that. After everything that had happened, I didn't know if I could forgive her, even if I wanted to. Grace, she said softly, her voice trembling. I know I hurt you. I know I broke your trust. And I'm sorry. I can't say that enough, but I need you to understand why I did what I did. I sat down across from her, my heart heavy with the weight of the moment. I didn't speak. I just listened, waiting for the truth, hoping that it would give me the clarity I needed. She took a deep breath before continuing. I didn't want to hurt you, I swear. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of what was important. We got so comfortable, so caught up in the routine of our lives, and I just felt like I was suffocating. I didn't know how to talk to you about it. I didn't know how to tell you that I wasn't happy. And then I met him. I nodded slowly, my mind trying to process her words. I had heard all the excuses before. The "I wasn't happy" line. The "I didn't mean for it to happen" excuse. It all sounded so familiar, so hollow. But there was something in the way she said it that made me pause. She didn't seem like the person I had known. She seemed broken, as if she was truly regretting her actions. I wasn't looking for an affair, she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. But I let it happen, and I know I can never take it back. I don't expect you to forgive me, Grace, but I need you to know that it was never about you. It was about me, and my own fears and insecurities. I was running away from everything I should have been facing with you, and I'm so sorry. The words stung. They were raw, but they didn't change what had happened. They didn't change the fact that she had lied to me, that she had kept this secret for so long. But despite everything, I found myself feeling sorry for her. She was sitting there, vulnerable and regretful, and for the first time in days, I felt like I was starting to understand why she had done what she did. I don't know if I can forgive you, Emily, I said softly, my voice full of emotion. I don't know if I can ever forget what you've done, but I'm not the same person I was before all of this. I've learned that I can't hold on to anger anymore. It doesn't help me move forward. But I also know that this isn't something I can just let slide. We can't go back to what we had. It's gone. She nodded, her face full of pain and understanding. I know. I don't expect us to go back to the way things were, but I want to be honest with you now. I want to be better for myself, even if it means we can't be together anymore. I sat there in silence for a moment, processing everything she had said. I wasn't sure what the future held for me, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her betrayal define me. I was going to heal, with or without her. As the days passed after our conversation, I felt like I was walking in two worlds at once. On one hand, there was the overwhelming pain from Emily's betrayal that I couldn't fully escape. On the other hand, there was a quiet sense of relief. Relief that I finally knew the truth. But no matter how much I wanted to move on, I realized that healing wasn't going to be easy. The betrayal had left deep scars, and no amount of time could erase the damage it had caused. I spent the next few days reflecting on everything that had happened. I thought about how Emily and I had shared so many hopes and dreams for the future, how we had planned out a life together, only for it all to be shattered by lies and deceit. But as painful as it was to face the truth, I knew that I couldn't stay stuck in the past. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of her betrayal. I had to choose to move forward. I started by distancing myself from her even more. Every time I saw her, all I could feel was the weight of her lies. It was too hard to pretend that nothing had changed when everything between us had been altered. She tried to reach out to me again, sending texts and calling, but I ignored her. I knew I couldn't allow myself to fall back into the same cycle. I needed space, and more importantly, I needed to focus on myself. It wasn't just Emily that I had to work on letting go of. I had to let go of the version of myself that I had built around her. I had spent so much of my time and energy trying to make the relationship work, trying to fix things, that I had lost touch with who I really was. The woman I had become in the relationship was built around our shared dreams, our future plans, and the idea of a love that I thought was unbreakable. But now I realized that love couldn't be enough to keep something together. Trust, honesty, and respect had to come first. I began to make small changes in my life. I started taking care of myself again, something I hadn't prioritized in months. I joined a yoga class, something I had always wanted to do but never found the time for. It wasn't just about getting in shape, it was about reclaiming my own space, my own time. I had spent so long living for someone else, trying to make things right for Emily, that I had neglected myself. Now I was learning to take care of my body, mind, and soul again. I also started spending more time with my friends. For too long, I had isolated myself, focusing solely on Emily and our relationship. I needed to rebuild the relationships I had put on hold, and I needed their support to help me heal. We went out for dinners, spent nights reminiscing about old times, and laughed about things that had once seemed trivial. But in those moments, I felt a sense of comfort and security that I had been missing for so long. Even though I was moving forward, there were still moments when the pain would creep up on me unexpectedly. I would see couples laughing together, holding hands, and I would feel that familiar ache in my chest, the realization that I no longer had the relationship I had thought was my future. Sometimes I would catch myself thinking about Emily, wondering what she was doing, who she was with, but I knew I couldn't keep doing this to myself. I couldn't keep wondering if she regretted what she had done, or if she had moved on easily while I was left to pick up the pieces. The hardest part was realizing that I didn't have control over what happened next. I didn't know what the future held for me, but I had to trust that whatever came next, I would be okay. I wasn't broken, even though it felt like I was for a long time. I had my strength, and that strength was what would carry me through. The moment I truly began to feel a shift was when I realized I wasn't angry at Emily anymore. The anger had started to fade, replaced by a deep sense of acceptance. I had accepted what had happened, even if it still hurt. I had accepted that I couldn't change the past, no matter how much I wanted to. And with that acceptance came peace. One evening, while I was out for a walk, I bumped into Emily at a cafe. She was sitting alone, looking out the window. When she saw me, she stood up, her face full of emotion. I could see that she wanted to say something, to explain, but I knew that it was pointless. Words could never undo what had been done. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I truly am sorry for everything. I've realized the damage I've done, and I'm living with that regret every day." I took a deep breath, the finality of it all sinking in. "I've already let go, Emily," I said, my voice steady. "And I don't want to hold on to the past anymore. I've learned what I needed to, and I'm moving on. But I hope you find the peace you're looking for, too." She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Grace, but I'm grateful you found it." With that, I walked away. As I left the cafe, I realized that I was no longer carrying the weight of her betrayal. I had forgiven her, not because she deserved it, but because I needed it for myself. I had let go, and in that moment, I felt free. A few months passed, and each day brought a new sense of clarity. The pain of betrayal had dulled to a manageable ache, and while I was still healing, I began to feel stronger. Every decision I made after that encounter with Emily felt more intentional, more aligned with the person I wanted to be. I had spent so long running after someone else's approval, after someone else's love, that I had forgotten what it meant to love myself. The hardest part was facing my own vulnerabilities. For so long, I had shielded myself behind a facade of strength, pretending that I was okay while carrying the weight of Emily's betrayal. But in the months following, I realized that vulnerability wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. It was the ability to feel, to open up again, and to trust that I was capable of healing. I didn't need to hide from my emotions anymore. I needed to embrace them. I started rebuilding my life in a way that was true to myself. I took up hobbies I had long forgotten. Painting, something I used to do as a child, became a way for me to reconnect with my creativity. I enrolled in a cooking class, learning to make dishes I had always wanted to try. I surrounded myself with people who loved me for who I was, not for who I was pretending to be. It was liberating. One thing I noticed, though, was how much stronger my relationship with my family had become. After Emily and I parted ways, I reached out to my parents more. We spent Sundays together, talking about everything and nothing at all. I realized how much I had neglected them in the pursuit of a relationship that wasn't healthy for me. My siblings, too, became a vital part of my support system. They reminded me of who I was before I got caught up in someone else's world. They reminded me of my strength, my independence, and my worth. Yet, even as I moved forward, I had moments of doubt. I sometimes wondered if I would ever be able to truly trust someone again. I wondered if the scar from Emily's betrayal would always remain, a reminder of what could go wrong. But with every passing day, the answers began to reveal themselves. Trust was something I would rebuild slowly, in time, and I didn't have to rush the process. The key was to trust myself first and to build a foundation of self-love and acceptance before I could give that trust to someone else. One day, as I was out for another walk, reflecting on how far I had come, I saw Emily again. She was sitting at the park bench, staring at the ground. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of whether I should approach her. But something inside me told me that this moment, whatever it was, needed closure. I walked over to her, taking a seat beside her. She looked up in surprise, her eyes still holding a hint of sadness. "Grace," she said quietly, her voice uncertain. "Hey, Emily," I replied, offering a small smile. "How are you doing?" She sighed, looking out at the park, the weight of the past still on her shoulders. "I'm trying to move forward, Grace. I've been working on myself, and I've been thinking a lot about what happened between us." I nodded, understanding. "I've been working on myself, too, and I've realized something important. I don't need closure from you anymore. I don't need an apology. I've already forgiven you, not for you, but for me." Her eyes widened, and I could see the tears threatening to spill. "You don't have to forgive me. I don't deserve it." I placed a hand on her shoulder, looking her in the eyes. "Forgiving you isn't about you anymore, Emily. It's about me moving on. It's about me choosing peace, even if that means walking away from the past. I've learned to let go, and I'm not holding on to the hurt anymore. I found peace in that." She wiped away a tear, nodding slowly. "I don't know if I can ever make things right, but I'm grateful that you've found that peace. I truly am." I smiled, feeling the weight of our past drift away. "I'm not angry anymore, Emily. I'm not sad, I'm just moving forward. We both are." We sat there for a moment, in the quiet of the park, and for the first time in a long time, I felt no resentment, no bitterness, just peace. It was as if the healing I had been working toward had finally come full circle. I had forgiven, and in doing so, I had freed myself from the pain that had once felt like it would consume me. As we got up to leave, I realized that this moment, this encounter, wasn't just the end of a chapter. It was the closing of a book, a chapter in my life that had been filled with love, betrayal, pain, and growth. But it was a chapter that was now complete, and I was ready to start writing the next one. I walked away from that moment feeling lighter, more at ease with myself and my future. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer defined by the past. I was no longer defined by Emily's betrayal or the pain it caused me. I was defined by my strength, my resilience, and my willingness to heal. And that was enough. The path to healing starts with self-love and forgiveness. We can't change the past, but we can control how we move forward. The true strength lies in letting go and choosing peace, no matter how hard it may be.